I'm Greg Riss. This week on One, artist, musician, hair designer, Ron Weiss. To get the true sense of who somebody is, you have to see them in their own environment. Although Ron was born and works in Durham, he lives in a most eclectic loft in downtown Toronto.
I remember one day we were driving past, and I said to my girlfriend, I said, "You see that window up there? That's the coolest loft in all of Toronto. And I'm going to try to get us a dinner invitation." So I called for dinner, and I wound up getting the place.
My goodness. What are some of the little treasures you have here?
Oh, geez. There was a gift from my mother, and I think this is Venetian. Anyway, this is one of my paintings.
Now, what was the inspiration behind this particular painting?
Well, I call it chicken in a basket. And it really, what I do is I just start throwing paint on the canvas, and then images start to emerge. And it is what it is. One time I had these, Nancy was showing her paintings, and there's these, family comes over, and they were a very old religious family. And first thing she says, "Oh, I don't like abstract art." And all Nancy's paintings were abstract. And so she sees this painting and she goes, "Oh, look, it's a chicken." And then she sees the breasts and she goes, "Oh, and it's a female chicken."
Tell me about your large, the lady with the grapes.
The lady in the grapes. Well, I was on a clothing store on Queen Street, and I was just looking around, browsing, and she was in the window. And somebody said, "Oh, can I help you with anything? Is there anything you like?" And I said, "Well, as a matter of fact, I do like the lady with the grapes." So I wound up, I left with her that very afternoon.
I'm amazed at all the little nooks and crannies you've got in this loft. Where are we right now?
Well, this is the turret, and it was built in 1850s, and it's unusual because it has the rounded glass, which was a big deal at those days to have rounded glass, and everything, of course, is custom made. And it was built before there was electricity at this end of town, and it was all lit with gas.
And of course, the big plus, you overlook Starbucks. Well, Ron, I want to thank you for inviting me into this absolutely magnificent place. It is incredibly eclectic, probably as eclectic as you are, so I'm not even going to try and define you. Define yourself.
Well, I'm an artist, first and foremost, but I have different, I do music and painting, and I'm a hairstylist. I work with my father's salon since I was young enough that I would be upset if I missed Saturday morning cartoons. That's how soon I started with doing hair, as a shampoo boy and sweeping the floor in the shop. And so I enjoy that.
You sort of alluded to your parents already. How much of an influence have they been on your artistic life?
Well, my father's very musical, and my mother's, she's actually comes from a long line of musicians and composers. Her father was first viola in the Berlin Philharmonic, and he was quite a genius. And my father's father played violin, and my father's taken up the cello recently, but he plays piano beautifully.
I understand that one of your ancestors had a rather infamous audience member at one time.
Yeah, he was playing with the Berlin Philharmonic under Furtwängler, and Furtwängler had the dubious distinction of entertaining Hitler, on cruise ships and this type of thing. So, but my grandfather dropped out of the orchestra to become a pianist and play the small opera houses through Europe and escape the whole war thing. So, so there's a long line of musicians. And my sister, of course, plays the piano beautifully. And
how do you find that all these arts kind of blend together?
Well, you think, I mean, to be an artist is to be an artist. And, would Picasso not have been maybe a great composer? But, you can only wear so many hats. So I think that Mozart probably would have been a brilliant painter. I mean, it's hard to say, really. Somebody who's artistic, then they have a creative thing, so...
It just flows through everything.
Yeah. I love to cook, too. That's an art form in itself.
Absolutely. What are some of the films you've worked on?
I worked... The very first film I ever worked on was called... The very first feature film was called Baby on Board. And it was with Judge Reinhold and Carol Kane. Judge Reinhold's the fellow that was in Beverly Hills Cop. He played the big dumb cop. And Carol Kane used to play Woody Allen's love interest in it. She's that sort of zingy, crazy blonde girl. And actually, part of it was shot right in this place. And it's funny because I lived here for 6 months before, and then one day I was showing my demo reel to a producer, and I looked at the windows in the background. I thought, this is my place. So that's kind of odd, isn't it?
And you never even knew until...
I didn't know until that time,
Isn't that
so 6
bizarre?
months. Yeah, really bizarre. And the other time that I was in this place was when I was 19. There was the music gallery, it was called. It was a music aggregation for young composers to do recording, and they had shows here. And actually that was right in, so my living room here was the music gallery 20 years ago. And I was a young, intimidated composer, and I sat probably right around here, and that was the stage. You see that piece of wood there? Mm-hmm. That was the stage, and I saw some bizarre performance of some Czechoslovakian group that were playing a bed spring, and it was all experimental and just crazy.
Now you do something called sound design. What is sound design?
Well, what sound design is, a sound designer, the term came up in advertising first, and a sound designer, because not all commercials need music, but they would bring in the sound designer, who is usually a composer, and he charges a fee, and you may say, I think it needs no music at all, so they still have to pay you. So I choose silence for this whole, do you know what I mean? So that's a sound designer. And a sound designer is also somebody who would choose sound effects, and because not all sound effects are just actually what you hear. It's called Foley or whatever. So they're enhanced using synthesizers and various things. So a sound designer is somebody who sort of builds a soundscape for a scene.
After the break, getting his Joust rewards.